Okay guys, today is the day I finally get to share my story with you, my journey over the past 2 years. Today is pretty much 2 years since I left the corporate world to be a full-time running coach. And there's been some ups, there's been some downs, there's been some very, very awesome times, there's been some super, super tough, challenging times. And today I'm going to share it all with you. And if you have any questions off the back of this, please just shout. But yeah, here's my journey from day dot to where I am today. So where to start? When I finished university and I started working, my first real proper job was at a bank. And I then worked my way up to be a banker, and I was a banker I worked at this bank for the bigger part of almost 10 years. When I was there, I was always a keen runner. I started off by doing Comrades Marathon, and naturally in South Africa, that's quite a big ultra marathon event. And a lot of people in the company spoke about, there's a Comrades runner who's fairly quick. And the Comrades runners came to me for like some tips and advice on how to, improve. So already, a lot of people were running to me while I was in the banking world. Anyways, fast forward a few years and we moved over to London 5.5 years ago now, and I started improving more and more as an athlete. So eventually I got to a point where I was did a sub 2:30 marathon. And then pretty much what happened was one of the ladies I worked with, she was going to get a training plan made for herself, or she was going to buy a training plan, should I say, off of a coach. And I said to her, I'm more than happy to help you and put together a plan of sessions I've done in the past that have worked for me and could potentially work for her. And I suppose that was the first step I took into becoming where I am now. So I just did it on an Excel spreadsheet, gave her a few sessions. I knew the sessions would work. They've worked for me. I knew they'd work for her. And she started following the training program, and she started improving very quickly. And not before long, she was in PB shape and really performing at her best. And she was going to pay a coach, I don't know, a couple of £100 or whatever it was to get these plans done for her. So she insisted that she paid me. But I was like, no ways, you're a friend and I'm helping a friend out. And there was no ways I was going to accept payment from her, because it was just a friend doing a friend a favor. I helped her friend and her friend's friend. And next thing, I was helping about 7 or 8 people, not charging them at all, and just really thriving from the fact that they were improving. So eventually it just started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I felt like it was taking too much of my time, so I had to charge for it at a stage. So I started charging like small amounts, but just because people really wanted to pay for it as well. I suppose they felt better if they paid for it, because they knew it was taking a lot of my time. So I started charging, and then it kind of grew and grew and grew. And then I registered a company at that point. And then naturally it just grew more and more and more. And eventually, after helping my first friend that I helped, till this point, it was probably about 4 to 5 months. So it grew quite quickly. At this point, I was probably coaching about 25 people, okay? Not full on coaching, but helping 25 people. And I thought, okay, at 25 people, I can't, do a full-time corporate job at the best of my ability. I can't coach 25 people at the best of my ability. I can't be the best athlete. Something was going to give, because there just wasn't enough hours in the day. So that's kind of the trigger point where I decided, okay, if it's grown so quickly in a short space of time, now was the time to risk it. And it was pretty much almost the same time that lockdown happened. So March 2022, lockdown happened. I went into full-time coaching in June 2020. So 3 months after lockdown. Lockdown presented good opportunities, because a lot of people were running that weren't running before. And they didn't really know where to start, and they needed help. So from that point of view, it was good. But it was also very challenging because a lot of people that I started coaching lost their jobs or had tighter budgets. And at the end of the day, running coaching is a luxury. And it was just, unfortunately, tough decisions that they had to make. And a lot of them had to stop running coaching. So that was definitely one of the most challenging points, if not the most challenging points of this journey. So I went full-time at 30 clients. And I thought if it's grown from so quickly to 30 in a short space of time, it can just keep on growing at that rate. But yeah, beautiful thing called lockdown happened. And for a few months, it actually went backwards a little bit. So I had a few people joining that weren't runners before. But I had a few people that I was coaching that I really thought I'd be coaching for a long time, that I was helping, that just couldn't afford running coaching anymore. And they had to tighten their budgets. So at that point, I went backwards and I had a decision to make. I'd gone into this full time. I had nothing else going on. I had no other form of income. It was directly related to the amount of people I coach was my income. And I remember sitting at dinner with Taryn, deciding, what am I going to do next? Because for those 1 or 2 months, things were just going backwards. I wasn't really making ends meet. It was super, super tough. I obviously advertise a lot of the good stuff out there, and the good stuff is super rewarding in this industry. But there's been some hugely challenging times, and this was one of them. I decided to phone a few schools and just look to see what else was out there. I knew there was potential with Best Athletics and just a little Best of Coaching, and I knew I could get to a place where it was sustainable at some stage. I just didn't know how long it would take, and I knew I needed to get experience, because unfortunately runners want a coach that has experience, and you can understand it completely, but when you first get into it, you don't have that much experience. So I even considered, and this is how tough things were at that stage, I considered taking a coaching role to be a school track coach, where I would have to cycle 30 minutes one way and earn, I think it was £9 an hour, and do that 3 days a week. But I was desperate. I was just desperate, and I didn't really know. I didn't want to go back into the corporate world, because I thought I need to give myself a big opportunity. And yeah, I really did consider that. But thankfully, I think 3 things happened at that point in time which really helped. So one, the people I was coaching started coming through, and they really started improving, and this became evident to a lot of other runners out there. The rate that they were improving at was great, and I think it made a few people want in. They saw their friends improving and they thought, okay, cool, Nick's helping them a lot, can he help me as well? So obviously it took a while for them to see the improvements, but once the improvements started happening, that's when things started growing momentum. The next thing was that quite a few social media influencers joined, just by chance, I think. And that was a huge break for me, in the way that it was free advertising, I suppose, in a way. I was coaching them as per normal. They were improving quite nicely, and they were publicizing it on things like Instagram, Strava, YouTube, just social media channels, and it was getting a big reach, which was helping me a lot. And that was just happening naturally, and yeah, it was just really cool for people to be doing, I suppose, free advertising in a way, because they were improving, and it was just awesome. And then the last thing, the last good break I suppose I had was, there were a few coaches in London that had stopped coaching, and their runners needed to find a coach. And I think a lot of them took a risk on me. They wanted to, continue with coaching. They didn't really know where to go. I was there with not that much experience, but they thought it's worth the risk. They wanted to try someone, and most of them are still coached to this day. So I think the risk paid off for a lot of them, and it's been enjoyable for me. So from that point, things really started to grow month on month and get momentum, up until, I suppose, where I'm at the moment. So it went from coaching a group of 30 trying to make ends meet, to now the applications starting to come through, and it started growing and started trending, and I was working super hard to get a lot of blog posts out there, a lot of useful information to runners, and just relay as much knowledge as I could to try and help and reach as many people as possible. So finally things started the penny started to drop, and numbers started growing, and then they grew and grew, and then eventually after, I don't know, 6 months of that, it got to a stage where I actually couldn't handle the amount of clients that I had. So good problems to have, obviously, but it was quite overwhelming. I reached the stage where I was coaching over 100 people, and when you coach over 100 people, you really struggle to find the time for yourself. You struggle to find the time to train. You struggle to find the family time. I was just burning out. Like, it was amazing to help that many people, but at the same time, there was no ways it was sustainable. And unfortunately, something had to give eventually, right? So at that stage, it was a good time for me to bring in another coach. The thing I did around a year and a half ago was register a running club, Best Athletics. So a lot of the people I was coaching wanted to be part of a running club. So initially I registered Best Athletics for the people I was coaching. It's an absolute headache to register a club in England, but at the same time, rightly so, because then I suppose there would be so many clubs. And I got in touch with a lot of other coaches and asked them how do you register a club. They all said to me, you just don't do it because it's almost impossible. I then really, when I have something set on my mind, I love to pursue it and do it. So I made this my goal, and came up with a club constitution. You need 6 people as part of the committee members, stuff like that. But eventually we got it over the line, and we officially registered Best Athletics, which was really cool. And in the beginning, like I said, that was just for the coached runners to be part of a club. Then a few people wanted to join Best Athletics as a club, but not take out the coaching, and that was completely fine. So I've completely separated the two now. Look, one area I've been incredibly lucky in and I'm thankful for is the people in the team. They are incredible. It was a one-man band from the start, so a lot of my time was spent doing admin time, and eventually, it gets to a point where something's got to give. But thankfully, there's so many people in the team that are just willing to help out. And it's just, such a big help when someone takes things off your hands, frees up a bit of time, and that's just been really cool. So yeah, I'll forever be thankful for that. One of the biggest things and things I'm also extremely grateful for that's happened over the past 2 years is that 6 months ago I signed a contract with Adidas as a London captain for them. Adidas is doing some incredible work in the running community, where they're really focusing on building a nice, supportive, encouraging community, which is exactly what I stand for and believe in and all about, and what Best Athletics stands for, believes in, is all about. So the clubs align themselves very nicely. I think that's what initially attracted them to bring me on as a London captain. Our values and philosophies align, and yeah, I do a whole lot of their runs. It lines up quite nicely with my club, Best Athletics, and it's just been incredible to be a part of and see the community growing, and it's only going to grow in the right way. So yeah, I'm incredibly grateful and proud to be a part of, and I can't wait to see where that goes as well. Cool guys, I am so super excited to have shared that journey with you. It was awesome to relive it and see what the last 2 years have been all about. If you have any further questions, please pop them in the comments. I just touched base on it. I could have spoken about a lot more, but I didn't want to make this YouTube vlog hours and hours. It's been one incredible journey, and honestly, at the end of the day, all I have to say is thank you so much to everyone who's played a part in it. It's been awesome. We're just getting started. Let's go onwards and upwards. Cheers. Okay, there were a few questions that people wanted me to cover off prior to recording this. So the one was, would this work if I was still in South Africa? would I be able to do what I'm doing? And the honest answer, I think, is probably not. And if I was, maybe not as effectively as I am here. And that's simply down to the fact that there's a whole lot more runners here in the UK. The magnitude and volume of runners here is a lot bigger than in South Africa. And running coaching is a bigger thing in general, I would say, in the UK than in South Africa. When people want to improve, it's like quite a big thing. They look for a coach to help them out. I know when I was training back in my South African days, a lot of us, thought we could just, I suppose, download plans, do it ourselves, do a bit of research, so on and so forth. Whereas in the UK, it's a much bigger thing. So yeah, I think I probably would have eventually ended up doing what I'm doing now if I was still in South Africa, but potentially not as effectively as I am here in London. Okay, someone else asked me how many hours do I work in a week, and that is a very, very, very good question. I actually did an analysis the other day, and I suppose it also depends on what you consider to be working hours. Do I consider a run for myself being working hours? And the truth is yes. Obviously running is part of my job as a coach, as an athlete as well. So my job starts, I suppose, when I start running in the morning. I came up with, you know what, there's a lot of admin attached, I suppose, to every job out there, especially when you're starting out in the beginning. Every single piece of kit that you see out there, I've posted off personally myself. Every member I've registered on the England Athletics portal. A lot of like website work when new kit comes in, it's all about updating everything. A lot of Instagram work on my page, on the team page, so on and so forth. So all things considered, I came up with a figure of 100 hours a week. So I'm probably working 100 or very close to 100 hours a week, which is a lot more than normal, I know. But at the same time, what you put in is what you get out, and I don't regret any of it so far. Someone said they're looking to get into running coaching full time. When do you know the time is right? And I suppose in my case, it happened naturally. Like I said, at 25, 30 clients when I was still working, that was the time for me to really go into it full time. I think it's definitely not worth the risk if you don't have any clients to give up what you're doing. You should definitely start small, and quickly you'll realize if it's for you. If you're helping people improve, if you're growing, if you're enjoying it, and you're thriving, and you see big potential, then it is for you, and consider it. But you'll quickly realize after coaching a handful of clients what it's all about. One thing I would mention is that it's a very rewarding but very tough industry. There are loads of running coaches out there, which is great for the sports, but at the same time you need to be completely on top of your game. You need to be knowledgeable. You need people to go to you as a coach and know that you're going to bring the best out in them. And then I think if you've got that nailed, then you stand a very, very good chance of being a successful coach one day. Someone asked me how you become an ambassador for brands and how do you get sent free gifted items. So pretty much, like if I rewind back to when I first started posting every day on Instagram, I really, was seeing a lot of social media influencers getting sent a whole heap of stuff, and I thought it was very, very cool, and I wanted to, get there myself type thing. And so I started chasing it at a stage, which is exactly what you shouldn't do. You should let that stuff happen naturally. And I think always think from a brand's point of view. Try and position yourself in such a way that the brand will want to associate themselves with you, and make yourself so good in a way that it's impossible for them to say no to. So I think when I started posting regularly and gaining more and more traction, and helping a few people, then I got sent I remember like the first thing, which was incredible because I'd never experienced it before. I think I got sent like, I don't know, a random cream or supplement or something. And it was so cool because I was like, wow, like actually, you know, I didn't pay for this and it just got sent to me, and that was pretty cool. And yeah, I suppose fast forward a few years later, and I probably spend 95% of things coming my way saying no, because there's obviously just so much you can do. So yeah, I would say be true to yourself, align yourself with brands you really want to align with, and don't go chasing it, let it happen naturally. I just want to say a massive thank you to every single person I've coached, to every person that's bought a piece of merchandise, to every member that's joined Best Athletics, to the brands that have supported my journey that I'm an ambassador for, that have literally just given me any bit of support over the last 2 years. Thank you, thank you, thank you. There's no ways I would be where I am today without you, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. So thank you.